What's up guys? Welcome back to the channel Hand Waving. Your friend Naruto Addict 2.0 is here again with a brand new Naruto fanfic that's going to change everything. Today's fanfic is titled, What If Naruto Was Broken, and Hinata, Ino and Anko Became His Light? Part 2. Let's start this fanfic. Early next morning, same location. The Raikage entered the office after finishing his usual early morning workout regime. He sighed in disgust as he remembered how he had to deal with the council yesterday and spent all day assuring those lazy bastards that he would find a way to get something out of this fiasco. He was so close to using his lariat on all of them and then adopt Konoha's style of military dictatorship. The council's pressure was part of the reason why he pulled the trigger on this kidnapping attempt. Now he was already realizing his father might have happily dumped the Raikage title on him and rushed to death just to avoid dealing with the council ever. And all the damn paperwork. He sat behind his new desk to absent-mindedly lift some dumbbells and shake out evil thoughts about decapitating Pompous. After about 30 minutes, there was a knock at the door. Another loud, enter, revealed the same messenger Chunin. Raikage-sama, we got the information from our spies in Konoha. These were sealed into the Hawk's message scroll. The man spoke quickly as he presented just 2 scrolls. A raised an eyebrow. Did they not have time to gather more files on other witnesses? No, sir. There was only one legitimate witness at the time of our ambassador's death. There were 2 others present, but they were the clan head and his daughter, so their accounts could be dismissed as biased in any court. The Raikage's other eyebrow joined the first one at this interesting development. He took the 2 scrolls, then sent the Chunin out. He laid them out on his desk and took his time reading over the detailed account of exactly how it happened, and then looked over the witness file. A's eyes widened at the interesting history of this person. His lips began to form a smirk as he reread the Konoha ANBU's report, and his many years of shinobi experience told him that it seemed to have left important parts out in some areas. Apparently there were some secrets involved with this incident that they could not carelessly put on an official report for even their own shinobi with high enough clearance to read over. No matter, it would be their downfall. Without the whole truth, this report suddenly had holes. It was a long shot, but A would take this as he buzzed his secretary into the office via the intercom. Mabui-san, get me the diplomat that worked with Konoha in the past, and clear my schedule for this morning. I have a long list of things to discuss with him, the Raikage ordered. The now named beautiful dark-skinned young woman affirmed with a silent nod and moved to make arrangements. A then leaned back into his chair and sighed. This is truly an underhanded tactic. I almost actually feel bad about this, almost. But I need to succeed in this to make the inevitable international shitstorm from the attempted abduction worth it. He began to grin. If this works, we may actually get an intact body of the strongest and most pure male Hyuga. That would provide solid results in our research compared to a female Hyuga who was viewed as weak by her own clan, especially if we manage to extract some semen before it could decay. Same time in Konohagakure. I can't believe I slept that much. You're right about me needing it, Kurama. Naruto muttered out loud as he yawned and stretched his body as much as he could in his bed on this early morning. He slept most of the day away yesterday, only getting up to eat and relieve himself. I am always right. I do have one question, though. Just what is that abomination you have on your head? Kurama remarked in his head, curious about the interesting-looking nightcap her host was wearing. It looked like an odd toothy monster eating the boy's blonde hair. Oi, don't diss Mr. Nightcap. It protects me from bad dreams and keeps my head warm. Besides, it's a gift from Hokage Gigi. He defended as he stepped out of the bed to stretch some more. Nevertheless, my container shouldn't be wearing something that's stupid and childish, grumbled the fox. Naruto just shrugged as he pulled the nightcap off and began undressing for shower. You do realize I'm still a child, right? The boy deadpanned. So, foxes are already adults by the time they're your age. Kurama tried pitifully. He just laughed out loud. Your fox logic won't work on a human, and the hat stays. He smirked upon hearing an annoyed snort in his head. After showering and eating an actual healthy breakfast of milk, fruit, toast, and oatmeal. Naruto dressed in his training outfit of a black loose sleeveless shirt with the Uzumaki spiral drawn in red on the back and white shorts. So what do I need to start with? The boy thought, getting down to business as he stretched to make his body loose. Unfortunately, your body is pitifully underdeveloped thanks, once again, to your hopefully former ramen addiction. Kurama paused for an angry snort from her container before continuing. Any real physical conditioning will just break your body at this point. We will build up your endurance and muscles as you eat healthier before we begin on any actual conditioning and your shinobi training. It won't take much time, as I will be working to make efficient use of your body's improved nutrition. It shouldn't more than 2 months for you to be in good enough shape. Until then, we'll start with something easy. Maybe 10 laps around the entire village, and 2 sets of 50 crunches, push-ups, and squats each 2 laps. The fox couldn't help but smirk evilly at the boy's horrified expression at the list of the easy exercises. We will flesh out more of your exercises from there as time goes on. Now get going and no talkback. Chop chop. The hidden Anbu guarding Naruto eventually wrote in their daily report that they heard their charge loudly cursing a damn fox, as the boy left his apartment for his long morning of tort exercises. Later, it was noon when our blonde hero was dragging himself up the stairs to his apartment. Damn fox, you put me through hell today. Naruto whined as he painfully fished for his keys in his shorts pocket. I know, I particularly enjoyed your creative vocabulary on what you were going to do to me when I asked for 2 more laps. I'll be looking forward to more tomorrow. Kurama replied, snickering at the memory. Naruto let out a pained groan as he opened the door, shuffled in, and fell forward flat on the entrance hallway's floor. A moment later, the 2 Anbu guards hidden next to the still open front door could hear snoring. 2 huge sweat drops formed in the air above where the 2 invisible guards were hiding. After listening to the boys snoring for 5 minutes, the guards shrugged at each other and one of them briefly shimmered into visibility to gently close the front door. An hour later, the blonde woke up with his stomach grumbling. He opted to make use of the first of his 2 allowable ramen meal for the week. He cleaned himself up and headed back out, wincing in slight pain from his sore body. Arriving at Ichiraku Ramen, he was greeted by one of the few people that saw him for who he really was, Tuki, owner of his favorite ramen stand. Hey there, how's our hero doing? The middle-aged man called out boisterously from the kitchen as he saw the little blonde sit at the counter. Naruto glanced around to check he was actually the one being spoken to and his head in confusion with a fox-like expression. Hero, did I do something, old man? He innocently quizzed. Tuki laughed uproariously. You sure did. You're too modest, or have you forgotten how you saved that cute Hyuga heiress the other night? The whole village is abuzz about it. The cook clarified. Naruto smacked a fist into the other hand in realization. Oh, ooh, that one. Actually I did forget about that. I was sleeping all day yesterday and I was busy with my sensei from hell all morning. Naruto replied with an embarrassed chuckle while rubbing the back of his head. I heard that. Scoffed the sensei from hell. A cute brown-haired young teenage girl came into view from the back of the stand. As soon as she saw the familiar mop of sun-kissed blonde hair, she let out a happy cry and jumped over the counter, with speed that would shock an elite Junin, to snatch the boy into a bone-crushing hug before he could say anything. You're a hero. You must have been so awesome when you stopped that evil nin all by yourself and saved that Hyuga girl. Maybe she'll fall in love and you two will get married, the cute waitress rambled on as she squeezed her little brother figure harder. Ayame-chan, you're killing our favorite customer, you know, the amused Tuki pointed out to his daughter. Huh, was her reply before she looked down to see the poor boy's blue face suffocating between her already budding. She yelped and pulled Naruto away from her chest before apologizing sheepishly. Naruto took in a breath and chuckled at Ayame, his sister figure who also saw him for who he was instead of the Kyuubi. It was no big deal, Ayame-chan. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. Naruto replied shyly with a hand on the back of his head before continuing. Why would anyone want to marry me though? I have the. He quickly clapped a hand over his mouth at the slip. Tsuki and Ayame caught on and were stunned. Moron. Naruto's inner voice grumbled. You know now. The older cook leaned in to inquire carefully while Ayame looked on with a demure expression. Naruto sighed before nodding, and heavy silence fell on them for an uncomfortable moment before Tsuki smiled broadly. Don't worry, what happened with the Hyuga clan is only the beginning. Some of the villagers are beginning to form new opinions of you, and it won't be long before everyone sees you for who you truly are. If you keep this up when you grow up, I wouldn't be surprised if you have many friends, and likely many girlfriends. The old man spoke the last part with a small perverted grin and laughed, before Ayame lightly conked him on the head with a ladle. Don't pay attention to him, even though it's true you'll be breaking many girls' hearts everywhere you go when you're older. Ayame slyly said with a teasing smirk. Naruto looked horrified. Why would I do that? It'll kill them if I break their hearts. His childish misunderstanding caused both Ichirakus to laugh uproariously, and it took them a while to settle down before asking an embarrassed blonde for his order. He felt better immediately when he was told it was on the house for his heroics. After eating 3 bowls, he wondered for a minute about what he was going to do today. Maybe I should stop by the Naris and see if Shika's home. Naruto thought before jumping off the stool and walked in the direction of the clan's district, saying his goodbyes to the ramen stand owners. A 30-minute walk found Naruto speaking with the lazy-looking guards in front of the Nara compound. However, he was dismayed to discover the head family had gone out of town for a few days into the clan's giant nature reservation to catalog the deer population for research, as well as gathering supplies for medicine and other things. The blonde let out a sigh and muttered, "Troublesome," before thanking them and leaving. The Naras thought about filing for copyright infringement upon hearing their signature phrase being uttered, but found it too troublesome. On the way, he passed by the Hyuga compound's main gate and he was reminded that Hinata wanted to see him again soon. He shrugged on that thought and decided it couldn't hurt to see if she was available. Stopping in front of the gate's 2 guards, he made his request. My name's Uzumaki Naruto. I was asked by Hyuga Hinata to stop by when I recovered, and I was wondering if she was available. The 2 guards narrowed their eyes at the blonde boy and he had to hold back a gulp. Finally one of them spoke up. Uzumaki-sama, please remain here while my colleague steps inside to inquire about your request. The one on the left spoke professionally while the others slipped inside through the gate, apparently to speak to someone. A few minutes of terse silence passed between Naruto and the remaining guard until the front gate creaked open to reveal the other guard and one more man. Hyuga Hazashi stepped up to Naruto and bowed slightly. The surprised Naruto nervously returned the bow. Hello, Hiyashi-sama. We met the other night. I apologize if my stopping by here unannounced took you out of your busy schedule. Naruto respectfully said, mistaking the man in front of him for his identical twin brother, the Hyuga clan head. Hazashi could not resist an amused smirk. My sincerest apologies, Uzumaki-sama. We have not officially met and it was dark the other night, but please do forgive the confusion. I am not Hiyashi-sama, but his twin brother, Hazashi. The man paused as the boy flinched in surprise and confusion. The boy allowed himself to have a closer look and he did notice that this man was wearing a hitai on his forehead compared to Hiyashi being completely free of any headwear. I was asked to greet you and take you to our meeting hall since that is where my niece is being trained by her father. Hazashi continued as he bowed and stepped aside for Naruto to enter the compound. The blonde stayed where he was, a little nervous. Hazashi-sama, if they're busy, maybe I shouldn't bother them. The boy tried to respectfully back out. Nonsense, Uzumaki-sama. They are about to finish and Hinata-sama will have some free time afterward. In the meantime, I'd be happy to escort you until then, insisted Hazashi. Naruto reluctantly gave up and went inside with his escort. The sight Naruto saw as he entered through the gate flabbergasted him. He was immediately surrounded by a gorgeous garden on the sides and a long and thin reflecting pool forward of him. The pool was filled with beautiful and colorful koi fish, and vibrant green and white lily pads peppered the surface. The inner gardener in him squealed like a fangirl as he observed all kinds of rare plants and flowers in the garden surrounding the entrance. This was a clear display of the clan's wealth, and also their appreciation for the beauty of nature. As Naruto followed Hazashi around to the left side of the long reflecting pool, the garden opened up wide for him to see many impressive traditional Eastern-style houses littering the enormous compound. This was like a small village within Konoha. The long and narrow reflecting pool seemed to almost split the entire compound estate in two, with several ornate wooden bridges allowing access to either side. However, Naruto seemed to notice the odd discrepancies between the houses on the left side of the pool and the ones on the right. He also noticed that he was being taken to a giant traditional meeting hall at the other end of the pool, opposite the main gate. Hazashi-sama, he tried to speak before Hazashi politely interrupted him with a shake of his head. Uzumaki-sama, please do not refer to me with Sama. I am not the head of this clan. My brother is. He replied politely with a small smile. Okay, Hazashi-san then. I know I'm being rude asking this, but I noticed that there are a lot of small houses on this side of the pool while there are fewer on the other side, yet they're bigger and fancier. Is there a reason for that? Naruto inquired as he continued to see the differences. Hazashi smiled gently at the boy's observation. Usually a child like him would be staring into the pool the whole way, not even bothering to look around and notice the subtle darkness of this clan. Even the more mature and adult guests were only interested in the more luxurious offerings. Uzumaki-sama, since you may be coming here to visit more often, I am inclined to give you a brief history of this clan. That way, you will understand some of the things we do here. Hazashi spoke as the two walked slowly alongside the pool to the meeting hall. Since this village was founded and our clan moved here, our dojutsu, the Byakugan, was revered about as much as the Uchiha clan's Sharingan. In the beginning, we had to deal with our enemies trying to capture members of this clan to put the Byakugan to their own use, which is what you just saw happen with the Kumo Nin the other night. Almost immediately, the clan leaders of that time came up with a seal. It would effectively protect our Byakugan from capture by permanently sealing our eyes if they were removed forcefully or death occurs. It worked brilliantly. With this method, it was almost impossible for any enemy to capture the Byakugan. It incurred a high cost, however. Hazashi paused to take a breath. Naruto was paying full attention. What cost is that? The boy wanted to know more. Total subversion for the ones who carry the seal. There are two groups in this clan, the main and the branch lines. Whoever has the seal belongs to the larger and more populous branch line of this clan. Hazashi explained as he pointed to their left at the large collection of small but well-kept houses, then pointed to their right across the pool at the more luxurious houses. Those who doesn't have the seal belong to the smaller but more powerful main line, and they are in charge of the entire clan. The main members usually are raised to control this clan, deal with politics, and other more important functions. The branch members are allowed some freedom, but they must obey whatever any main member commands. If disobedience occurs, the main member may decide to use a special hand seal to incur unbearable agony as punishment on the branch member. This can even lend to mental damage or death. Ever since the beginning, we have been separated, the branch family forever serving and protecting the main family. Hazashi finished and glanced down to see an upset-looking Naruto. That's too cruel. No clan should have to be like that. I never had a family or a clan, but I can't imagine relatives being forced to serve me just because we were born into this. We should all be equals. He muttered with a sad expression before looking up at Hazashi. Hazashi-san, you're a main member then. I mean, your brother is the clan head, so it makes sense, right? Hazashi shook his head with a sad smile, much to Naruto's shock. I am of the branch line and I serve my brother. The seal is here. Hazashi replied as he pointed to his forehead covered by the Hittite. My brother came into this world a few minutes before me, and that was the difference between us because we are even in skills, intelligence, and other attributes. The main family groomed him while I was branded with the seal. In addition, Because I was a few minutes late and ended up on this side of the pool, my son, despite his potential as an incredible Hyuga prodigy, was automatically branded. My two nieces will eventually have to face the same fate as my brother and me someday. When Hanabi-sama is old enough, the clan elders will determine who would be the true heiress of the clan and the other will be moved to the branch family. Hazashi explained, and he could see the little boy was about to have an angry outburst. The man decided to interfere by holding a placating hand on the boy's shoulder to calm him down. Naruto had to hold his anger in, and then he looked downcast and shook his head in frustration. Uzumaki-sama, I am sorry this has upset you, but I wanted you to understand a little of this clan's traditions. When you see something here you may object to. Whatever happens here inside these walls, it generally would be best to not interfere and leave it for the clan's business. Now, we are here. Hazashi pointed out as they arrived at the main meeting hall's large double doors. Hazashi opened one of the two doors, allowing Naruto to step inside, and followed him in. They moved down a hallway, and they could hear grunts and fists striking flesh. Hazashi opened a smaller set of doors, and Naruto finally caught sight of the training area. It was apparently set up as either a meeting or dueling hall with 3 cascading rows of wooden benches surrounding a very large flat square area set against the back wall. Naruto could see a small indigo-haired girl, in a black skin-tight training outfit, attempting to land a hit on a tall man wearing white training robes in the middle of the stage. They were obviously sparring. The boy felt a hand on his shoulder, and he glanced up to see Hazashi silently nodding his head toward a particular section of seating. He complied and followed his escort to sit farthest from the sparring so as not to distract either of the combatants. Naruto could only watch in amazement as Hinata tried to hit her father with a flurry of fast, at least for him, and precise strikes aimed at his limbs. He was particularly impressed when Hiashi knocked her to the floor hard with a nasty downward palm strike to her cheek, but she immediately got up to keep trying to land a hit on her father. He definitely liked the guts she was showing, at least. After a few more minutes of sparring, Hiashi suddenly held a hand up signifying that their spar just came to an end. The two fighters then straightened up and bowed to each other. You are improving, my daughter. You have managed to close one of my tenketsus earlier than last time. Hiashi commended as he seemed to flex his left hand. Your kata need work, however. Practice them and we will train again tomorrow afternoon. For now, I see you have a guest, he stated as he glanced up at Naruto and Hazashi. Hinata was confused for a moment until her pale eyes finally locked with blue eyes after searching the meeting hall. Her only reply was, "Eep," as she instinctively hid behind her father's legs. Hiashi and Hazashi exchanged amused glances while Naruto was wondering what was wrong with Hinata after her complete 180-degree from a fighting badass to a bumbling introvert. Now, you should not be rude. Do not be shy and greet your guest properly. Hiashi smirked as he gently pushed his daughter around to his front. Hinata was losing her nerves and her eyes were wandering, looking at anything in her vision except for Naruto himself. Hazashi gently his charge to get the boy's attention. He then motioned with his hand for the boy to get closer to the girl and her father. Naruto complied, making his way down the steps to the main floor to stand face to face with a very nervous Hinata, who still would not look him in the eyes. With an incline of his head in greeting, Hiashi left them alone to talk some things over with his brother. Hello Hinata-san. I stopped by here to let you know I'm alright, since I thought you'd like to know that. By the way, that was some cool fighting you did. What was that called? Naruto curiously inquired. Hinata blushed at having her martial arts skill being called cool. Anyo, we train in the G Gentle Fist. We use it to strike W with chakra to inflict internal damage, instead of external like most other fighting stances, she bravely replied, but still unable to look him directly in the eyes. That's incredible. I guess that's why I saw that Kumo guy fall apart even though there was no damage on the outside. Your dad was really awesome. Naruto exclaimed before he realized something. Wait, when I met you at that playground, you could have fought those bullies off, couldn't you? The question made Hinata flinch visibly and a cloud seemed to form over her head. I'm sorry, Naruto-kun, I just don't like hurting anyone if I can help it. The pale-eyed girl mumbled as she looked dejectedly down at the floor while poking her two index fingers together. Well, that's no good. I'd hate for you to be hurt, and if you could defend yourself, you should do it. Naruto admonished gently with a serious expression, and there was clear concern in his deep blue eyes. Hinata could not help but blush at that. I suppose you're right. I'll try my best next time, she replied with a shy smile, finally locking her eyes with his. Naruto gave one of his trademark foxy grins and nodded in approval. So, your uncle told me you have some free time after this. Do you want to play together or something? He then tried to offer, hoping his new friend would say yes. Hinata nodded quickly. Anyo, I'd like that. Just let me clean up and get changed, she replied with another blush and quickly made her way toward the changing room. Naruto looked after her departing figure until she was no more, before he turned to the twin brothers. Hiyashi-sama and Hizashi-san, was that really the same person that hugged me out of nowhere the other night? Maybe she's got a twin like you too? He curiously inquired as he was pointing in the direction of Hinata. The twins exchanged amused grins. I will admit that was a very rare occurrence for my daughter. She is rather shy and unwilling to stand up for herself in most situations. That was why I was impressed when I was told she actually made it difficult for the kidnapper before you rescued her. Hiyashi admitted. The blond boy put a finger to his chin and his eyes squinted fox-like as he became deep in thought. She didn't do anything like that until she saw me sneak up behind the nin. I wonder why she suddenly tried so hard at that moment. He innocently said. The two brothers raised an eyebrow each as Hinata picked that moment to return in a simple pink kimono. After some small talk, the two children excused themselves to go play together elsewhere and the twins were left alone. That little, he is already stealing my daughter's heart and he does not even realize it. I should teach him a lesson. Hiyashi suddenly murmured to his twin in an annoyed tone. Hizashi smirked a little. He is only a child, brother. I doubt Hinata-sama realizes it as well. We should just let them grow and find out themselves. Hizashi advised and heard his brother let out a small sigh. I am not looking forward to my daughter's teenage years. If Hinata turns out to be anything like Hitomi-chan was, she would only remain shy until she decides one day to do what it took to get and keep her man. I should not say this as her father, but I am not betting on Uzumaki-san's chastity lasting long. Hiyashi spoke in a resigned tone. Hizashi had to smile at the memory of his brother's deceased wife. Not only that, but imagine the headaches our elders will give you when these two become close. Hizashi pointed out playfully and enjoyed seeing one of his brother's eyebrows twitch slightly at the mention of the elders. That comes with the territory of being the clan head, I suppose. However, have you noticed something about Uzumaki-san? Hiyashi inquired, changing the subject for now. Yes, brother. He looks like a young version of the fourth Hokage and his somewhat mischievous nature reminds me of Uzumaki Kushina. Brother. You don't suppose. Hizashi would have completely lost his calm at the implications if he weren't shocked into silence upon seeing a very rare full-blown smirk form on Hiyashi's lips. He looked truly devious. If you remember, we have had good relations with Minato-san, and we were privy to the fact that he and Kushina-san were in love and secretly married. You should also remember that we have not seen Kushina-san anywhere in the village for about 6 months until the Kyuubi attack. That day, we have heard the sad news of her dying along with the fourth, on the same day young Naruto was born. It is possible that if she had been actually pregnant with that child, she would have kept any sign of showing hidden until after birth for security concerns. One last thing that could make this more believable, we knew Minato-san personally, and how could he have used someone else's newborn, even an orphan, to seal the Kyuubi? I see him trusting only his own child to carry the burden. Hiyashi finished his deduction to his younger brother's growing astonishment. Brother, if that is true, Hizashi sputtered before his older brother held a hand up for silence. It is just speculation without solid evidence. We should keep this information hidden for now, at least until this could be used as a bargaining chip against the elders should they object to my daughter's growing involvement with the demon brat. They will not be able to resist the prospect of having our clan linked with the powerful traits of the lost clans of Uzumaki and Namikaze. This is all for my daughter's happiness should she wish to pursue Uzumaki-san in the future. Hizashi allowed himself to regain his composure and formed a smirk of his own at this devious plan. He was curious about something though. Brother, you seem quite convinced that Hinata-sama may choose Uzumaki-sama as her lover in the future, even though they are quite young and have just met each other, he pointed out to his older brother. Hiyashi just closed his eyes and allowed a tiny grin. It may be somewhat undignified of a noble main member to speak like this. Hizashi almost snorted at this private joke between them. They never agreed with this clan's segregation and took to occasionally poking fun at that tradition. But I would have to call this a hunch. A very good one, too. Hiyashi finished vaguely as his thoughts went back to when he met Hitomi at around the same age as Naruto and Hinata now. His daughter was so much like her mother it almost frightened him. 2 hours later, Naruto found himself standing outside the Hyuga compound's gate exchanging goodbyes with Hinata and Hizashi with promises of visiting again soon. As he walked away, he was happy about how things went with Hinata. She was a little weird with all the blushing and stuttering, but she was really kind and he could see himself being good friends with her. He found it funny that she was clueless about some of the games that other kids played outside the compound walls such as tag and ninja. He easily won a tag but was rather humbled playing ninja with Hinata as she usually found him easily with her Byakugan. Note to self: don't play any kind of hiding games with any Hyuga. That aside, Naruto, did you check out that girl's body when she was training? Kurama asked from Naruto's mind, before she almost smacked herself in the face for asking such a loaded question. Yeah, what about it? Naruto replied, not catching on to anything. The fox sighed in relief that her container was still young and naive. Bless your naivete, boy. Anyway, that is how a properly developed body looks. Her clan was focused on taijutsu training and proper nutrition almost from birth. She was fast, limber, and agile. Were she so inclined, she could kick your 8 different ways in the first 5 seconds with the way you are right now. Kurama stated as a matter of fact. Naruto had to bitterly agree with her assessment of his current condition. In your case, you have a natural disposition towards strength rather than speed like her. That is not to say we cannot make you fast, but your physical attacks will be devastating when you can fully utilize your strength. In 2 months, we will work strength into your body but also make sure you stay as quick and agile as your body would allow. For now, just focus on your exercises until then. Naruto nodded his affirmative before he had another thought. How do you know so much about human training methods? I was not always a monster who razes villages to the ground for no good reason, you know. I did observe humans in various forms throughout my long life, and while I was trapped in my 2 previous containers, I had a good and up-close look at how shinobi train. The fox explained before an idea struck her. That reminds me, we will need to get you started on studying history, tactics, math, human anatomy, and science. Every day after the morning exercises, when you are not busy, you will go to the library and spend the afternoon studying the books I pick out for you. She finished in a no-nonsense tone as Naruto flinched in terror at the prospect of having to read anything without pictures. First you take away my ramen, then you destroy my body, and now you want to bore me to death. Oh, stop whining like an infant. A strong body works best with a strong mind. A clever tactic you study now may save your life later when you remember it in the heat of a battle. You can effectively damage any human body with as little force as you need if you know where exactly to strike and what amount of pressure to apply. Studying famous shinobi and clans now may help you later if you ever encounter any of these shinobi or their offspring, since specialty jutsus are generally passed down. These are just few of many benefits of having knowledge, the fox lectured. Naruto didn't want to admit it at all, but he knew she was absolutely right. Besides, It's only for the first couple months as you build your body up to acceptable levels. After that, we will get more practical, and you'll only have to read just 1 or 2 books per week in addition to what they may teach you in the academy. Kurama allowed. Naruto nodded in resignation as he continued the walk back home. 2 days later. The past 2 days have been quiet. The only thing even remotely exciting that happened was when Naruto was kicked out of the public library on his first visit. The Hokage immediately appeared afterward though, and, kindly, asked for an explanation from the terrified librarian. When she could not provide an adequate response, the boy was allowed back in. The librarian was then reminded that she might be called in to talk with Morino Ibiki of the interrogation department to provide her supposed reason the next time she tried something again with Naruto. She swore to never even look at the blonde the wrong way since that day. I guess studying history isn't so bad. The battle at the Canopy Bridge was pretty awesome. Naruto mentally spoke to the fox as he was walking toward the Hokage Tower from the library. Glad to see you're taking well to your exercising and studying. Kurama approved in his head. You work fast, Kurama. I can already feel my body changing. The blonde thought as he flexed his arms some, noticing a little bit more muscle as he entered the Hokage Tower and went up several floors. He noticed a lone figure walking down the stairs from above. He scowled when he saw the cloud insignia on the man's armband, denoting that this man belonged to Kumogakur. The man was wearing the most arrogant and victorious smirk the young boy had ever seen on anyone. He did not pay the wary blonde any notice as he passed by and continued down the stairs out of the building. Naruto was glaring holes into the man's back the whole time until he was out of sight. He then disgruntledly spit on the floor where that man stepped through and continued up. Something was wrong, and he could feel it with each step he took closer to the Hokage office. There was a feeling of heavy pressure in the air and it seemed to be trying to crush him. By the time he reached the landing, he noted the secretary by the office's door was gripping onto her desk's edge with white knuckles and trembling, clearly scared out of her wit. At this point, the pressure was so strong and deadly that the boy himself felt like running back down the stairs and all the way out of the village, never to return. This is that old fart's killing intent. He's seriously pissed. The fox calmly clarified. I'd say, I want to faint and he's not even directing it at me. I think it had something to do with that Kumo guy. I've never seen Hokage Gigi this angry. Also, it doesn't sound like this is bothering you one bit. Naruto inquired of his tenant, who just scoffed. Please, this is like a gnat threatening a full-grown elephant, the fox replied dismissively. Says the one who left me to his mercy the other night when he was asking, nicely, about us, huffed Naruto. In my defense, that smile was scarier than anyone's killing intent and I am looking at the world from a small human boy's perspective, not from a giant biju able to squash puny humans with just my pinky. The killing intent in the air slowly lifted, much to the relief of the secretary and the blonde boy. A long moment of heavy silence passed before Naruto brought an index finger up. I don't suppose this is a good time to visit him, to Mei-chan. He tried to say in good humor. The cute young brown-haired female Chunin, doing secretary duties this week, violently shook her head. You're kidding me, right? You had to have felt that too. I like you too much to let you go in there now, Naruto-kun. She warned with a glare that brooked no argument. The boy just nodded his head and turned back in the direction he came from. I suppose you're right. I'll see you tomorrow then. Naruto agreed with a wave over his shoulder as he disappeared down the stairs. Now what? Now we find something else to do. There is no hurry in getting to that training field anyway. How about we repeat what we just did this morning for the evening? You should be able to handle that now. Kurama said thoughtfully as the boy winced at the prospect of more exercising. On the other side of the office's door, the Hokage felt Naruto's presence fade as he left the building. I'm sorry, Naruto-kun, but other things are on my mind at this moment, he thought as he sat in his chair and went back over the conversation that just happened with the Kumo ambassador. 15 minutes earlier. Would you repeat that again? The third ground out with barely constrained anger at the man standing in front of him, the new ambassador from Kuro. The man remained stoic, despite trembling violently on the inside in face of the powerful Hokage's anger. A good politician had to bluff all the time, after all. You heard me. Under the guidelines of our new peace agreement, we demand reparations for the wrongful death of one of our most prized retired shinobi. You also wrongfully did an autopsy on him without our permission and certainly have learned all of his secrets by now. The only way Raikage-sama will be satisfied is if we are allowed to retrieve an intact body of the man responsible for our ambassador's murder. The new ambassador spoke with a stern expression. You will forgive me for saying this, but bullshit. We have evidence and witness accounts that placed your retired shinobi in the act of kidnapping Hyuga Hinata. We obviously followed procedure with a hostile shinobi in our territory. The Hokage almost shouted as he slammed a fist on the desk, cracking it a little. What evidence is that? We have confirmed reports that there were absolutely no traces of our previous ambassador anywhere in the Hyuga compound and none on the Hyuga girl who accused him of abducting her. Here is what we feel truly happened. The previous ambassador was just taking a walk outside the compound wall when a young and infamous prankster decided to surprise and assault the man. Why would he have expected an attack in a village he had just signed a peace agreement with? The ambassador spoke calmly with a fake puzzled look before continuing. And to make it worse, the boy yelled out a blatantly false statement that would send a random man nearby into a blind rage. After the ambassador was brutally murdered by the same man, the Hyuga clan attempted to cover it up by having a young innocent girl lie about a kidnapping attempt and procured the gag and rope themselves. The reports also said that the young prankster himself disappeared right before the other Hyugas appeared, apparently not wanting to be caught responsible for the ambassador's demise. Because of that, he cannot be considered a reliable witness, even if we did not take his history of being an untrustworthy public nuisance into account, the ambassador said, laying out all his carefully prepared lies. The Hokage kept his deadly glare burning into this hateful man, but inwardly he was stunned. What this man said nearly matches the official Anbu report word for word. That Kumo kidnapper really did not leave any trace, even on the young girl and the ropes, which was a near impossibility. How did Kumo get their hands on the report in Naruto-kun's file? Because the Anbu reports could be accessed by any nin with high enough clearance, I ordered them to strike Naruto-kun's near-death experience, the Kyuubi's chakra, and any evidence, including the blood and kunai used by the Kumo nin, from the official record. This was all done to protect the S-ranked secret of Naruto-kun's Jinchuriki status. I didn't think it would come back to bite us in our collective. I honestly believe we have a better case than you do, and we will win if we held court in neutral territory over this, especially when we call your entire village in as witness to the young prankster's character. With that, I will repeat our one simple demand. Give us the intact body of the man responsible for our ambassador's murder. If you do not comply, I have been personally authorized by the Raikage to declare our newly signed peace treaty dissolved and we will escalate our military's presence on our border, the ambassador reiterated. You dare threaten us? The third snarled, increasing his killer intent at the ambassador, who blanched a little. We are simply doing what was required in response to the unprovoked murder of one of our most respected retired shinobi. Are you sure you want to risk heavy losses for an alleged murderer if things were to escalate between us? We all know Konoha is still weakened by the Kyuubi no Kitsune's attack. I'm also sure your current reports state that our military force is already back up to full strength after the last Great War. I wonder how your village, weary after so many losses, would feel if it was found out many more deaths could have been easily prevented by the life of one single man. You don't have to worry about this being public. We will keep this quiet and you can just explain the Hyuga man's death in any way you want. The ambassador pressed his advantage. The air grew heavy with tension each passing moment as the Hokage seemed to contemplate killing the man in front of him to just go ahead and get things started with Kumo. Get out. The god of shinobi finally spat out before he did something he would regret. The ambassador decided not to press his luck anymore and made for the door. I will be back later tonight for the official response, he quickly blurted out before exiting. After Hiruzen felt Naruto come and go and he had a few minutes to gather his thoughts, he realized there was no way out of this. It would either result in the death of one man or the deaths of many in a village with its morale still low and tired of death. He sighed and waved his hand. A dog-masked silver-haired Anbu instantly appeared in front of his desk. Inu, you have heard all of that. Find the leaks in the Anbu information network and seal them. Use any means necessary, and I don't care who were responsible. Just make sure to pump them for all information they have before they disappear, he ordered. It shall be done, Hokage-sama. Kakashi almost growled from behind his dog mask, angry at having been compromised. He then disappeared out of the office to carry out the new orders. Hiruzen, who was feeling every bit of his old age, tiredly stood up and looked out the window at his village, as if this would help him come to a decision. He remained staring at the sun slowly setting beyond the majestic forest surrounding this quiet village for almost an hour, before he finally turned around and buzzed to Mei on the intercom. The coming darkness seemed to signify the Hokage's sober mood. Get me Hyuga Hiashi. Tell him this is urgent. Previously, Hiruzen, who was feeling every bit of his old age, tiredly stood up and looked out the window at his village, as if this would help him come to a decision. He remained staring at the sun slowly setting beyond the majestic forest surrounding this quiet village for almost an hour, before he finally turned around and buzzed to Mei on the intercom. The coming darkness seemed to signify the Hokage's sober mood. Get me Hyuga Hiashi. Tell him this is urgent. Later in the evening in the Hyuga meeting hall. This is unacceptable, brother. How could you have already agreed to this? Hisashi exclaimed at his older brother just after Hiashi relayed the Hokage's account of his meeting with the Kumo ambassador. They were standing on the main floor among the top elders from both branches of the clan as they argued over this development. Your brother is right, we cannot allow you to be sacrificed. You are the head of the Hyuga clan, the most noble and respected clan in Konohagakure. Even more importantly, we also cannot allow our Byakugan to fall into their hands. Cried one elder. Let the cowards fight us. We will beat them back like we always have done. Another elder raged. Hiashi held out a hand for silence. I appreciate your sentiments. However, we have no choice in this situation. Kumogakure has outmaneuvered us completely. Even if we decline the reparations, then go to war and somehow come out victorious, what do you think will happen? This country, weary of conflicts, will blame this clan for this new conflict and we will lose our reputation and standing. This is my fault, since I have killed the man in blind rage without any thought to the consequences afterward. I have failed one of my own teachings in always accessing any situation with a calm heart and mind. For that, I must pay. Hiashi stated calmly, obviously prepared to meet his fate. This does not mean you should just give yourself up. You have a responsibility to rule over our clan and ensure its continued prosperity. Hisashi tried to reason with his older brother, but he and the other rebellious elders were suddenly struck silent by a large blast of killing intent. That is enough. This has already been decided. Our loyalty is to the village first and the clan second. It was, has been, and will always be that way for as long as this village stands. I will not allow myself to be the one person responsible for the possible destruction of our home and our children's future. The clan leader paused to calm himself. I only came here to inform you of my decision and offer my goodbyes, not to allow any of you to change my mind. I have already spoken of what I need for all of you to do after my death, and I expect all of you to carry out your tasks. Hiashi then directed his gaze at his twin. The same goes for you too, my brother. You must understand why I have to do this, and I expect you to raise my daughters alongside your son to be strong in my stead. Now, I do not have long, and I wish to spend my remaining time with my daughters before I leave to face my fate. I wish you good fortune after this dark day. Farewell. He finished his speech. He then immediately walked out of the hall, pointedly ignoring several still protesting elders in his wake. Hisashi clenched both of his fists hard enough to draw blood and gritted his teeth. It is you who do not understand that this clan will fall apart without you. The elders will panic and try to use both your daughters to gain more power and influence with others who would take advantage of the confusion. I cannot imagine them ever being happy when they may be used as political tools any day. Worst of all, I will be powerless to stop all this because of this damnable seal. He almost growled at that thought, before his expression softened some. I can feel this clan is inching ever closer to the day when this segregation would end and my son will be one of the first few to be set free. However, I fear that will never come to pass without you as clan head to oversee this. For once, the clan truly needs you more than the village does, and I will go against my own fate in order to save you and this clan, brother. Hazashi left the hall with a determined gait, heading for his house. Hazashi's house, a few minutes later. Hyuga Neji knew something was wrong tonight. His father hadn't come back home yet and the entire compound was in an uproar. He had a bad feeling about tonight, as if his life would change forever after this. It was just like the night before he lost his mother on her last mission when he was younger. The front door opened swiftly to reveal his grim-faced father entering. Hazashi then immediately went into his bedroom to get changed from his gray robes into a set of pitch-black mission robes, as if he was getting ready for a night mission. Neji was watching all of this with increasing trepidation. Is something the matter, father? He tried to get his father's attention but Hazashi continued his preparations, seemingly ignoring his distressed son. Only when he finished a few minutes later did he turn toward and kneel down in front of the young boy with an expression that seemed to say he was going off to a battle he would not return from. Neji's lips began to tremble and tears were now streaming down his cheeks. Neji, my son, I need you to know that I am extremely proud of you. Despite that damnable seal on your forehead, you continued to excel and outshine everyone else in this clan, even your two cousins. It is because of that you will be able to live on and grow stronger even when I am not around. Tonight, I am going out to make a choice I can be truly proud to call my own after having been mocked by fate my whole life. Hazashi then gripped his crying son's shoulders tightly. Someday, you will be freed from your curse, and you will be able to make any fate your own. In the meantime, continue growing strong and do your best to protect the clan and those that are precious to you. Do you understand me? Hazashi implored of his son. Neji was stunned at his father's unusually passionate speech, but he didn't dare say anything for he believed if he did, then his father would take that as the cue to leave and not return. Unfortunately for him, Hazashi continued anyway by tightly hugging his son with a whispered, I love you, before releasing and rising to leave. Neji did not want this, and quickly latched on to his father's leg tightly. No, father. You can't. His pleading was cut short by his father's soft chakra strike to the back of his neck, completely unseen. He instantly relaxed and fell limp in his father's arms. As he was gently laid on the living room's couch, the last thing Neji saw before his eyes completely closed was his father putting a blanket over him with a serene expression, like how one would put his son to bed any night. Same time at Hiyashi's home. Hiyashi stared down at his two beloved daughters sleeping in each other's arms in their favorite place, which was a large and very comfortable chair in the living room. Hinata and Hanabi apparently tried to stay up late because their father was suddenly called away for his talk with the Hokage. They wanted to greet their father when he came home finally, but they fell asleep before that. Hiyashi smiled forlornly. He did not want to leave them, but he wouldn't allow them to experience war if he could help it. He reached down to gently rub Hinata's forehead. She shifted a little under the touch and ended up resting her cheek on the top of her younger sister's head. Hanabi was curled up in a small ball on Hinata's lap, her head resting against her older sister's chest. Hiyashi let out a shuddering sigh and allowed a tear to roll down his cheek before wiping it away. He would truly miss them, and prayed to every deity out there that they would pull through after his death with his brother helping them out. After a long minute of standing over his sleeping daughters, he gently laid out a blanket over them to keep them warm. After one more reluctant glance, he then quietly left the living room and was about to make his way out when he was stopped by a female voice. Will you be coming back, my lord? It took all he had to not show visible shock at being addressed out of nowhere. Slowly turning his head to glance in the direction of the voice, he found one of the female branch members, Hyuga Tomo, standing off to the side wrapped in a simple sleeping yukata with her arms crossed underneath her ample bust. Her fingers were nervously gripping her elbows. Her long and luscious black hair, reminding Hiyashi of Kushina's memorable red hair due its incredible length and volume, was braided now for sleeping and hanging loosely over her shoulder. She was an incredibly beautiful woman even for the usually high standards that all Hyuga women easily met. She was also kind and motherly, which was why he personally selected her as the primary caretaker for his daughters after Hitomi's unfortunate death. She did an excellent job raising them since that fateful day, and he had come to truly admire her loving, yet slightly mischievous nature. None of that was present on her terrified expression as he stared unblinkingly at her for a long moment. Yes, I am. That didn't seem to calm her at all as she nodded jerkily with hitched breaths. He didn't think she was convinced at all, and let out a small sigh. Tomo-san, I do not believe I have told you yet that I am eternally grateful to you for helping raise my daughters. I feel we would have been lost without you around, and they truly do consider you to be their mother now, if not by blood at least. Tomo took a shuddering breath as she allowed several tears to escape her pale eyes. Why you honor me with your kind words, my lord. I truly do feel blessed to have been invited to serve your family, and I can only hope I did Lady Hitomi proud in her stead. Hiyashi closed his eyes and smiled fondly at the memory of his deceased wife. Believe me when I say you have done much more than that. Please continue to watch over my daughters, he stated sincerely and bowed his head gratefully to the now trembling caretaker. I must go. My lord. Tomo whispered brokenly as she seemed to reach her hand out for him, who was already walking with his head high through the door out of the house. He didn't look back. Letting out a choked sob with her outstretched hand now covering her mouth, the caretaker slowly turned her head to gaze lovingly at her charges, who were still sleeping in each other's arms looking adorable and peaceful. Your father can be a terrible liar sometimes, she muttered with a faint smile as tears continued to stream down her cheeks. After bowing to the gate guards, Hiyashi slowly made his way alone down the long and dark walkway leading from the compound into the village. It was nearly midnight as he slowed his pace. He did not need to be at the Hokage Tower for a good while, and he would enjoy this final stroll before his upcoming death. It was interrupted, however, when he suddenly stopped after a few minutes of walking and instantly activated his Byakugan. Whomever you may be, you cannot hide from my all-seeing eyes. You may as well come out now, he quietly declared to a nearby lone tree on the side of the road. The tree's dense leaves shook and split open to reveal a black-clad man leaping down upon Hiyashi's ready form. Hiyashi effortlessly dodged a preemptive palm strike from the landing assailant before he rushed in to disable the man. He would not make the mistake of killing his opponent this time. He would just merely beat this man to within an inch of his life instead. He opened with a blindingly fast flurry of two-fingered chakra strikes, which his attacker easily parried or matched blow for blow. Dancing around each other like a pair of graceful performers, the two combatants descended into a beautiful and almost quiet exchange of blows and parries that went on for a long minute with neither party landing a successful hit. It wasn't long before Hiyashi realized he was facing a gentle fist user, and an excellent one, too. He was also irritated to find that his Byakugan couldn't penetrate through the man's head wrappings, preventing his attacker's identity from being revealed at this moment. Somehow, this man had access to the anti-Byakugan seals usually used by Anbu for their masks. You aim to defy your clan head's wishes. Why? He quizzed tersely as he increased his tempo to try to overwhelm his attacker. The black-clad man remained silent, however, and easily matched his pace, before shoving him back to get some distance. This was so he had room to spring into a fast combo that just barely managed to overwhelm Hiyashi's defense, leaving him with a numb right arm. Frowning at his unmoving arm as if it betrayed him, Hiyashi snapped back to the attacker with a cold glare as he reared his left arm back. Hake Kusho, 8 trigrams vacuum palm. A powerful and precise blast of pure chakra shot out of his palm in the direction of his attacker. However, the black-clad man was prepared and easily somersaulted forward high into the air over the blast. Crack! The blast instead hit the tree the assaulter was just hiding in, breaking the tree's top half off, and it crashed to the ground with a loud thump. Meanwhile, the airborne man easily sailed over his opponent, twisting in the air to avoid one more blast of vacuum palm that continued harmlessly into the night sky. He then landed behind Hiashi, who was already whirling around and striking out to meet this man's assault. However, it was still too much, as the assaulter easily rushed in under the strike and deftly disabled his opponent's remaining arm with several more Juken strikes. Hiashi stumbled back with a growl, not willing to give up even with his arms sealed. He tried to spin to activate his Kaden revolving heaven. However, his attacker already anticipated this, as he quickly dashed in to gracefully land a flurry of Juken strikes along the length of his left leg. Almost stumbling onto the ground in an undignified heap, Hiashi barely managed to remain standing on his good leg with nothing but the full extent of his pride. He let out a defeated sigh as he watched his attacker relax and straighten up to slowly remove the head wrapping. If I had known it was you from the beginning, I would gone through this scuffle much more carefully and differently. It is rather irritating to have my every move predicted rather effortlessly. The black-clad man finished removing everything, revealing himself as the identical twin of Hiashi. Hazashi. Indeed, that is why I have hidden my identity. It was the only way to defeat you, Hiashi. The clan head snorted slightly as he allowed his brother to gently help him over to the tree trunk he just broke in half a moment ago. Do not patronize me. You have always been slightly more skilled than I. I find that interesting, because I believe the opposite. Hazashi retorted with a small smirk as he helped his twin sit down against the tree trunk in a dignified manner. Hiashi would not be able to get to some help on just one leg without crawling, which would be bad for the clan head's image, so the only thing he could do was to wait and recover his mobility. Hazashi squatted down next to him with a regretful sigh. Forgive me, my lord. I feel I must disobey your orders. Hazashi, why are you doing this? You know they will not just give up on this. You should not have stopped me, unless you want to be responsible for the death of thousands. Hiashi tried to reason as he stared his brother in the eyes, despite his immobile body. Any conflict with Kumogakure will not happen, and I will make sure of it. However, you must live. Your daughters and our clan need you alive more than this village needs you dead. I have decided I will take your place instead to ensure the best possible outcome for both the clan and village. Hiashi's eyes widened slightly as his brother continued. Since I am your identical twin, they will likely not have noticed the switch until after the reparations have been confirmed through the official channels. By the time they discover the ruse, there would be nothing they could do without making fools of themselves internationally. As a result, we will be able to keep the Byakugan out of their hands. This is what I have chosen to do in order to protect our clan, and especially our own family. Hazashi explained with a determined expression. What if you are wrong and they decide to go to war anyway? You will have died for nothing, Hazashi. What about your son? Hiashi tried to reason once more, his desperate eyes locking with his twin's steady eyes. Hazashi broke eye contact after a moment, slowly stood up over his brother's form, and stared longingly back in the direction of the Hyuga compound. The people in Kumo would have to be imbeciles to go to war over a false body. Deception is a large part of a shinobi's job after all. We just have to get them to think they have won until it was too late. They then would not be able to do anything without looking like fools. Hazashi let out a slightly exasperated sigh before continuing. For a man with all-seeing eyes, you are blind to how much your daughters need you without Hitomi-sama around. Only you would be able to truly ensure their freedom and happiness, since I will not be able to do much as long as I carry this seal on my forehead. Hiashi had to agree with that assessment, but there was no one else he trusted more than his own brother. Neji is mature and capable already, and you know as well I do that he will be able to handle himself just fine. My only request in regards to my son is that you help guide him into becoming a strong and honorable man in my absence. Hazashi finished and smiled like a prideful father at the thought of his son, before his expression turned somewhat sad. Forgive your little brother his selfishness. All my life, I felt like I have been mocked by fate, especially when my beloved son, and once in a lifetime prodigy, was branded simply because I was a few minutes late in our own births. Tonight is probably my one chance to make a true choice, to die the way I choose, doing what I want, which is to ensure the best outcome for the clan, and more importantly, the best future for our children. He spoke thoughtfully while Hiashi could only listen in silence. Before I take my leave, I want you to understand this, Hiashi. I may have resented my fate, but I never resented you at all our entire lives. I will always be proud to have served the true head of our clan and, more importantly, proud to be your brother. Hazashi ended his heartfelt speech by moving calmly in the direction of the Hokage Tower, never looking back while leaving his final words behind. Goodbye, big brother. Hiashi could only sit in silence, his head following the departing figure of his twin. He already lost his desire to plead for his younger brother's return. How could he continue when he had seen nothing but fierce resolution in those pale eyes? As his immobile body remained propped up against a lonely tree next to this lonely stretch of the dark walkway, his quiet voice carried out into the still midnight air that just barely reached Hazashi's ears. Goodbye, little brother. 15 minutes later in an empty park near Hokage Tower. Wow, that was rough. I took way too long finishing those exercises this time. Naruto thought as he leaned back on a park bench, exhausted from his latest round of exercises. That is to be expected with your body still recovering from this morning's routine. You did well, actually. Tomorrow you will rest both your mind and body. Either spend the day at home or go out with your friends. Kurama decided in the boy's head. He nodded, glad for the brief reprieve. Uzumaki-sama. A voice surprised Naruto into sitting upright on the beach as he snapped toward the source. He saw that it was Hazashi coming into view, easily recognized by the Hittite adorning his forehead. Hazashi-san, what are you doing out here this late? I should be asking the same of you. It is more odd for a young child to be out here compared to an adult merely taking a stroll. Hazashi inquired with a raised eyebrow as he stopped nearby. Naruto put on a sheepish grin and scratched the back of his head. Hee, I'm sure you've realized I'm not like most kids. I was just resting after finishing my exercises and was about to go home when you showed up. Hazashi nodded, satisfied with the explanation. I see, Uzumaki-sama. I am on my way to see Hokage-sama for a mission, so I shall see you around. He politely dismissed the conversation as he made to walk past on the way to the Hokage Tower. Naruto had something on his mind he wanted to ask, though. Hazashi-san, if you have time, I have a question, he called out in an apprehensive tone. Hazashi stopped to glance back at the blonde and inclined his head to show he was listening. I was thinking about what you said the other day about your clan's history and the seal. If it was so bad, why hadn't anyone come up with a better seal? Something that everyone in the clan can use to protect the Byakugan without all that pain and control. Naruto carefully inquired in a neutral tone. Hazashi was surprised by this question and had to take a moment to think over his answer. I am not exactly sure, Uzumaki-sama. My best guess is that, in the beginning, the clan was proud of the seal as it protected their pure bloodline from being stolen and tainted by their enemies. They did not realize the implications that they just laid the foundation for a truly segregated system the clan is using now. By the time the branch members became dissatisfied with the way things have become, the entire clan were already set in their ways. It is now tradition to use the seal and they all just accepted it as the way of life. I suppose that is why not many have thought about modifying the seal up until now. He offered and Naruto could only furrow his eyebrows together in deep thought. You know, Uzumaki-sama, you are not the first one to ask me this. Hinata-sama asked me a similar question not too long ago, the Hyuga added. The blonde glanced up at him with a raised eyebrow. Hinata-chan did, so she doesn't like the system either. Hazashi shook his head. She never has. She is kind, does not enjoy having servants, and she hopes to one day see the use of the seal band. Wow. I was going to say that, since I might be Hokage one day, I was going to fight to get this seal band and have them find another way. However, it looks like it'd be a lot easier when Hinata-chan get to be the next head of the clan and we could work together. Naruto muttered thoughtfully as he cupped his chin and squinted his eyes fox-like. Hizashi raised an eyebrow and kneeled down in front of the boy to level his pale-eyed gaze with a pair of blue eyes. What makes you believe you might be chosen as the Hokage? I just began training, but I'm going to be the strongest shinobi ever. I have to if I want to protect my precious people. And when you become the strongest shinobi in the village, you become the Hokage, right? It's just natural. Naruto replied as if this was the most obvious thing ever. The Hyuga was instantly reminded of the fourth Hokage at this reply. He raised his other eyebrow, then broke into a chuckle. Naruto was a little unnerved by seeing a composed Hyuga chuckle heartily. Maybe that's why they wear such stoic expressions. It's pretty disturbing. I agree wholeheartedly. The older man suddenly ruffled the blonde's hair, much to his cry of chagrin, and stood with an amused grin. Uzumaki-sama, you will have to work hard then since there are many powerful shinobi out there, but I believe you may be able to do it as long as you have your precious people to think about. My son, Neji, will be incredibly strong and he might aim for that Hokage seat someday as well. You two may likely end up being rivals. The man had to smirk deviously at the boy's slightly affronted expression at the thought of someone being as strong as him in the future. However, I also have high hope that the two of you will get along eventually and be good friends. Now, I need to go, so be sure to get home safe and have a good evening. Hizashi finished by bowing slightly and turning in the direction of the Hokage Tower to begin walking again. Hizashi-san, can you tell me what this mission is? Naruto quickly blurted out. The older man stopped for a moment and spoke without turning around. I cannot tell you, but I can say it is to protect my own precious people. Goodbye, Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto watched the Hyuga disappear into the darkness toward the Hokage Tower, feeling a slight bit uneasy. Oi, let's go home. There's nothing to do out here. Kurama suddenly spoke up. Naruto frowned, but just shrugged and began making his way toward his apartment. The fox was deep in thought, however. That man had the eyes of a warrior who's content with all he did and is strolling toward his death as if it was a simple walk in a park. Something is happening tonight, but it's best not to let this boy know just yet. There is nothing we can do right now anyway. In the Hokage's office, the third Hokage sat at the desk, waiting patiently for the arrival of Hyuga Hiyashi. In the room with him were two Anbu, one of them Kakashi, and the Kuro ambassador. In the center of the office was a scroll laid out with a large storage seal array. The ambassador was growing nervous by the second as the other three occupants leveled their glares at him, as if they were wishing for him to slowly die by melting into a puddle. I expect this to be kept quiet. We will deny anything if this comes to light, the Hokage ground out through gritted teeth. The ambassador flinched at the leader's harsh tone before nodding nervously. When you retrieve the body, you will sign this statement that declares you have retrieved your so-called reparations for Kumogakure, and we will not speak of this ever again. Is that understood? The third continued as he pointed at a piece of paper on the desk, his glare intensifying. Believe me, we want to keep this quiet on our ends too. I will sign as soon as I have confirmed it was Hyuga Hiyashi himself. The ambassador tried to steel his own nerves against the third's anger, but failing miserably. It felt like eternity for him under the unbearably imposing presences of the two Anbu and the Hokage until the office's door finally clicked and creaked open to reveal Hizashi Hyuga. It took the Hokage all he had to keep his face schooled in a neutral expression even with the massive shock he was experiencing. The Anbu were lucky they had their masks on, and it took considerable effort to keep their bodies from showing any reaction. What the hell is going on? Why is Lord Hiyashi's twin brother here? Was the singular thought of the three as they easily recognized him by the Hittite always covering the seal on his forehead. Lord Hyuga Hiyashi reporting. Hizashi said shortly with a scowl. The Hokage saw something in the new arrival's pale eyes that made him think he should at least play along. He really hoped this man knew what he was doing. You have come, Lord Hiashi. You do understand why you are here, correct? The ambassador asked nervously, visibly relieved at having a distraction, as Hiashi walked to the center of the office. Yes, I am to die and give up my body for my crime of killing one of your retired shinobi for no reason. Let us just get this farce with so I do not have to deal with any of you thieving cowards a second longer. Hiashi retorted dismissively as if the Kumo man was even less than a to him. The ambassador bristled at the tone and insult but said nothing, not wanting to cause any more problem than necessary when they were so close to their goal. He then took out a photo of the real clan head to compare to Hiashi's visage. The 1 minute the ambassador spent studying and comparing between the photo and the person was the longest ever for Hazashi, the Anbu, and the Hokage. It's a match. Take your Hitai-8 off and we will proceed. I'm sure Hokage-sama would prefer to keep the insignia here, the ambassador suggested, and another new bout of tension was rising in the air. They knew they would be found out if Hazashi took the Hitai off and revealed the hidden seal. If it is all the same to you, I am doing this as a duty to protect Konohagakure from an unnecessary war. I would prefer to die knowing I have served my village to the very end, so please allow me to keep my Hitai-8 on until after my last breath has left the body. Hiashi coolly replied without missing a beat. The ambassador took a moment to think before silently nodding. Everyone almost exploded with relief, but they had to keep up the charade. Hiashi kneeled formally on the floor next to the ceiling scroll and closed his eyes as if in meditation. A long moment of grave silence persisted in the air before the dog-masked Kakashi decided to begin preparing for the inevitable. However, the Hokage stopped him. I will do this one. It is my responsibility, since I allowed this to happen, he grimly said as he slowly moved behind Hiashi and took a small quick injection syringe from the Anbu. He then gripped the kneeling man's shoulder tightly and leaned his head down next to his ear. I am really sorry for allowing this. You will receive the highest honors and your clan will forever remember you as a hero, he whispered, his voice breaking slightly. Hazashi only nodded once with a serene expression before he felt a small prick at the base of his neck. He felt a calming numbness overtake his entire body almost all at once. It was welcoming actually. His last thoughts were of his older brother and nieces, his deceased wife, and finally, his son. He let a small smile grace his face. In just 3 seconds, his body fell limp in the Hokage's grip, devoid of all life. Hyuga Hazashi had just passed away instantly and painlessly as a hero to his clan and village. Sarutobi Hiruzen silently and gently laid the body down onto the ceiling array with trembling hands. After a moment of silence out of respect, he slowly removed the Hitai-8 to reveal that the seal disappeared, having already worked its magic sealing Hazashi's Byakugan and all of its secrets. The people in Kumogakure would not be able to learn anything from this man's body now. The third then sealed the body into the scroll with a loud poof. The ambassador silently walked over to the desk to sign the statement. As he set the pen down and turned around, he cried out in surprise as a hand suddenly grabbed him by the neck and swung him into a wall, cratering it inward. The ambassador was trying to let out a strangled cry of protest when he was frozen solid by the Hokage's glare and killing intent. Hiruzen's face was old and wrinkled, but his eyes looked virulent, cold, and calculating, as if they were the eyes of Shinigami looking at its newest soul to eat. The ambassador felt like he truly would die any moment just looking into his powerful gaze. You may have won, but this will be the last time. After tonight, no Kumo ambassador or shinobi is welcome here until further notice, unless absolutely necessary. That means you will leave the village's premises within 10 minutes of this conversation or I will have you imprisoned for open hostility. In addition, if I ever see one single Kumo nin set foot anywhere in our country without express permission from our people for any reason at all, you tell your Raikage I will personally come and show them exactly why I have lived this long, and why I am known as the Kami of Shinobi. The third Hokage spat out before he harshly tossed the terrified ambassador to the floor with a loud crash. The whimpering man thought of nothing but escaping as he frantically scrambled to his feet, grabbed the scroll, and ran out the office as fast as his feet could carry him. It was as if the Shinigami was breathing down his neck. Follow him all the way out to the lightning border, and make sure he can't even stop for rest. In addition, send someone out to the Hyuga compound to deliver the news and ask for an explanation. The third growled as the two Anbu bowed and vanished. He was not relieved that they might have protected the Hyuga clan's secret. He was still angry that he still sacrificed a life to supposedly protect thousands. It did not matter if it was a nobleman or a servant, a person's life was still lost this day and he had to allow it on his watch without any resistance. All of the emotions Sarutobi Hiruzen kept in all day finally overflowed as he yelled in rage and smashed his fist on the desk, splitting it in two. The next morning, Naruto noticed something was different in the air around the village. Life went on as normal to most people, but to him, he could feel that something was somewhat off. He relayed his feelings to his tenant as he was walking around, enjoying the morning air. Stop by the tower if you want. Maybe that old fart knows. Kurama only had this suggestion to offer. Naruto, having nothing else to go on, decided to detour to the tower anyway. He entered, made his way up the stairs, and was led in by Tamae. The blonde was surprised to see his surrogate grandfather, sitting behind what looked like a new desk, looking so old. The third was exhausted, having been up all night dealing with all kinds of emotions. He felt and looked defeated. He was so deep in thought he did not notice Naruto entering the office at first, and raised his eyebrows in surprise. Oh, hello, Naruto-kun. What can I do for you? He tried to pull himself back together and keep some semblance of a facade up. Nothing, Hokage Gigi. It's just that I haven't seen you in a while, and I figured I'd stop by for the permit and chat a little. Though, it looks like you have been through a ringer lately. Naruto pointed out, seeing the old man wince slightly. So I think I'll just pick up the permit and leave to do other stuff for the day, he added for the third's benefit. The tired old man sighed and looked somewhat grateful for this thoughtfulness. He got up to retrieve the prepared permit out of a folder and passed it on to the boy. They were about to exchange goodbyes before Naruto remembered something. Hokage Gigi, before I go, I was wondering if you know something about Hyuga Hazashi. I ran into him last night near here. He told me he was coming here for a mission, something to protect his precious people. I was wondering if he's okay now. The Hokage stiffened with a grim expression and that was all he needed to see. His entire inside became ice cold as his blue irises turned icy and shrank to small dots. Don't tell me, was all he could squeeze out in trepidation. The third's expression softened into sadness and simply shook his head no. I am sorry, Naruto-kun. I will tell you he died very bravely and with honor for what he believed in. He had no regrets. Beyond that, I cannot tell you the details myself. It is up to Lord Hiashi to offer more if you still wish to know, the suddenly frail-looking man tiredly admitted. He knew. Naruto whispered before his face twisted into anger, his blue eyes still icy. The third narrowed his eyes in confusion. He knew. He knew already he was going to die. That's why he talked to me like that last night. Why did you let him go? If you knew it was going to happen, why didn't you protect him like a Hokage was supposed to? The boy shouted at his surrogate grandfather in tearful rage. He didn't want to stick around to hear any excuse and sprinted out of the room, leaving a crushed old man behind. I'm sorry, Naruto-kun. You will come to learn this is easily the worst part of being a Hokage, the exhausted and crestfallen village leader quietly whispered to no one in particular. Later at the Nara compound. Rut. Nah, was all Naruto made out from a very faraway voice in his dazed confusion. He just couldn't seem to stop going over what happened with the Hokage this morning in his mind. It was like an infinite loop. Naruto, yelled a voice that was very close by and it finally shook him out of his dazed thoughts with a dumb expression. He took a look around to see he was sitting across a shogi table from a familiar lazy-looking pineapple-haired boy his age, Nara Shikamaru. Naruto then quickly remembered he spent an hour sulking and holding back tears after berating his surrogate grandfather. Afterward, he ate something he didn't even remember now and walked aimlessly around the village just for something to take his mind off what happened. He then ran into his friend on the streets. Shikamaru noticed something was wrong and offered for his blonde friend to come over to his place to cheer up. Now, the brown-haired boy was putting on an annoyed expression as he muttered, "Troublesome," and pointed down at the table, which had a match in progress. "Sorry, Shika. I've been out of it lately." Naruto mumbled pitifully as he moved one of his white pieces without a thought. His friend's eye twitched in annoyance at the new move and went into the thinking pose for the 5th time in this match if he had been paying attention and kept count. "Oh, I got you thinking now. Guess that's somewhat a personal victory for me now," he remarked half-heartedly as he tried to clear the cobwebs from his head. Shikamaru raised a twitching eyebrow. "This isn't the first time you've forced me to do this. Troublesome, it looks like you're truly an idiot savant if you just don't pay attention at all while playing shogi," he muttered grouchily as he came out of his pose and moved one of his black pieces. "Oi, I resent that remark." Naruto grunted indignantly as he moved one of his own pieces without another thought again and took one of his opponent's pieces. Shikamaru growled in frustration and went back into his thinking pose once again. You just proved his point. I have never seen such sloppy play, but you just keep getting out of trouble against vastly superior strategies. It's like what you are doing is organized chaos. In my thousands of years existing, this is simply astonishing. Kurama offered her thoughts in clear awe. "Not you too, Fox." Naruto groaned mentally. "Troublesome, remind me to never challenge you to a match when you're in a bad mood. This is hard on my brain." Shikamaru grumbled as he moved one of his pieces into position to be sacrificed. Naruto furrowed his eyebrows at that move, and wondered what his friend thought of sacrifices. "Hey Shika, what would you think if you had to sacrifice your own life for a cause? Would you be angry at the person who asked you to do it?" Naruto quietly asked, his eyes staring down at the table. Shikamaru stared at his blonde friend silently for a long moment. "That's an odd question to ask a kid, you know. If you want me to answer that seriously with what I know, I would say that the only reason I'd be angry with the person asking me to sacrifice myself is if I knew there were other options, other ways of solving whatever troublesome situation I was dragged into. However, if it was the only choice and I was saving the people I cared about, I may find it troublesome, but I'd accept it with a clear conscience," the Nara heir replied with a sigh. Intrigued, Naruto thought over that answer as he moved his own piece to take his opponent's sacrificial pawn. Shikamaru capitalized on the trap he set and took advantage. "Naruto, it's troublesome to say this," he murmured as he effortlessly took another one of his opponent's pieces, "but my dad told me this when he first began teaching me shogi. He said that in many ways, a shinobi's life is almost like a game of shogi. You use strategy, tactics, traps, and sometimes sacrifices to win your battles. The only reason we do all of this is because we have to protect our king, no matter what." Naruto was still deep in thought as he carelessly made another move that Shikamaru was prepared for. "Our king. I guess that'd be the Hokage," he asked as his eyebrow twitched in annoyance with his growing disadvantage in this shogi match. His friend just shrugged. "I asked Dad that, and he was being troublesome about it, saying that we decide who or what is our king, that we absolutely must protect at all costs," the pineapple-haired boy replied offhandedly as he moved one of his pieces for a checkmate and called it. Naruto just groaned and cursed. "Damn it, you win, for the 68th time in a row. Anyway, I wonder what Hokage Gigi considers to be his king," he muttered as he properly put his pieces away. "I'd think that's a question that shouldn't be troublesome even for you to answer." Shikamaru raised his eyebrow as he cleaned his side of the table. His friend smacked his forehead loudly. "The village and everyone in it. Of course." He smirked and muttered, "Troublesome blondes," before rising. "Oi, You want to stay for lunch? Mom will be glad to have you over. He shrugged as if he didn't care if his friend stayed or not. Naruto's stomach growling was the answer. Several hours later, outside in the clan's district. Remind me not to go back there for a meal, Kurama. Yoshino-san didn't go easy on me with the etiquette's lessons today. Naruto groaned tiredly as he left the Nara compound. She's doing you a favor. What she was trying to show you today was how to eat properly with nobles. Everyone and their mothers know you're a favorite of the Hyuga clan head now, and that bossy female probably figured she'd get started on helping you impress anyone if you were invited to any formal dinner, the demon fox reasoned. I guess I can live with that. It's just that I'll never understand why there were 4 different forks. And 3 different glasses. I'm underage and I can't even drink 2 of them, anyway. The boy and the fox continued chatting within as he walked his usual route past the Hyuga compound. The blonde took a moment to pull out of his inner conversation to check things out at the front gate. He saw the guards were dressed in all black, and he could feel that the entire clan's mood was subdued even from outside the compound. He then bowed his head in condolences toward the guards. A little surprised, they returned the bow nevertheless. The boy then continued past at a slow pace, deciding he would give it a few days before it was alright to stop by. Uzumaki Naruto. A tight voice rang out from behind. Turning around in confusion, Naruto's eyes landed on a lone and slightly larger boy standing in the middle of the walkway 10 meters away. He was dressed in all black with his long black hair tied together in a loose ponytail, and the blonde saw that he had the pale eyes of the Hyuga clan. He looked like his whole body was tense with coiled up anger. They stood staring at each other in silence for a long moment. One boy was trying to figure out who this Hyuga was, and the other was trying to burn holes through his blonde counterpart with blazing eyes. Yeah, that's me. I don't think we've met. Naruto inquired with a confused eyebrow. The boy quickly shifted into an aggressive kata of the gentle fist. You do not need to worry about my name. You will not need it after this. The boy snarled as he sprinted toward the bewildered blonde with killing intent. Naruto. He intends to kill you. Just get away. You can't beat him now. Kurama yelled into her container's mind. Naruto was so flabbergasted by the situation and the yelling that he just stood there as he took the angry boy's first strike square in his throat. The blonde was blown back, spitting out blood as he went down hard on his back. He was in so much blinding agony just trying to breathe and clutching at his throat that he didn't notice the long-haired boy had moved to stand over his body and began a flurry of 2-finger strikes at many tenketsu all over him. He could do nothing but scream hoarsely with blood coming out of his mouth as even more incredible agony slowly enveloped his entire being while his attacker continued the enraged assault. Finally the angry boy stopped and straightened up, breathing heavily. Uzumaki Naruto, I have left your vitals for last because I want to make you understand that you will suffer as long as possible for my father's death. The boy growled down at the battered blonde. Realization finally struck Naruto. Why you're Neji? He painfully tried to get out through his blood-flooded throat as his entire body continued to scream in agony, not being able to move at all. The long-haired boy now named Neji flinched at hearing his name and narrowed his eyes angrily. Who told you that? He snarled, his Byakugan blazing. Hazashi. Guh. Was all Naruto could force out before he was struck hard in one of his kidneys. The pain he felt before was nothing compared to now, and he nearly passed out from shock. Don't you dare say that name in my presence. You do not deserve that honor. It's your fault my father sacrificed himself in his brother's place. If you hadn't interfered with the fate of a weak person like my cousin, it wouldn't have led down a different path toward the death of someone truly strong, like my father. Neji spat out, his eyes blazing even harsher. Naruto, despite the extreme agony, frowned. How si can yous say tt had a about Hinata. He pushed out through the pain, more dark blood pouring out of his mouth. She is weak. I have decided that weak people like you and her should not interfere with the fates of the strong. The Hyuga replied with a sneer. Be bullshit t. Yus should be protecting her, arg. Naruto screamed out and gurgled again as Neji slammed a chakra strike into his left lung. A weak and dead person does not get to tell me anything. Neji's face darkened ominously before he prepared to go for the finish. Naruto, we're going have to break your promise with that old fart. I'm going to pump my chakra into you, a lot of it. You're not ready and you may go berserk with the power, but it's the only chance. Kurama was cut short by an ear-splitting scream of agony that was not coming from the Naruto but from the Hyuga boy instead. Neji was screaming at the top of his lung to the high heaven as he clutched at his forehead tightly and was about ready to tear his hair out. He fell down next to his blonde victim and flopped like a fish in unbearable pain. Naruto was stunned and utterly confused at this abrupt change in the situation, until he noticed an approaching man wearing the same black funeral robe as Neji. It turned out to be Hyuga Hiashi holding one of his hands up in a seal. He also looked pissed as hell. The boy quickly connected the dots. The clan head had just activated Neji's caged bird seal to stop him. That's enough, please. He tried to force out as loudly as he could, and was relieved when he saw Hiashi release the hand seal a second later. Neji's screams ceased abruptly and he was now gulping for air, apparently unconscious. The Hyuga clan head glared at one of the gate guards nervously approaching the three. Get this, moronic boy to confinement and leave him there for a month. No visitors except for me. He snapped harshly as he made his way over to Naruto and kneeled down. The guard quickly scooped up Neji's unconscious body and carried him away into the compound, while the clan head then activated his Byakugan to scan the blonde's body for any major damage. Nothing looks fatal and you are already beginning to recover, thanks in no small part to your, Naruto noticed the pause about his, tenant. Incredible healing most likely, Uzumaki-san. You were fortunate when the guards reported my nephew running out after you a few minutes ago, and I decided to investigate. I think this is what you call a case of deja vu, since I've had to look over you the other night as well. Hiashi spoke softly as he continued to scan the body. Naruto had to hold back a chuckle. Please don't make me laugh. I hurt all over. He grunted with a pained smile. That is what most people generally say after their first time facing the gentle fist. I truly apologize for this unforgivable behavior from one of my clan members. Hiashi said sincerely with his head bowed, before letting out a weary sigh. I could have you rest inside or have you transported to the hospital on our expense if you wish, Uzumaki-san. I think I'll recover soon enough, so I'll wait wherever you put me if it's okay, and thanks. Naruto was now beginning to speak more clearly as he got used to the pain. He groaned a little when Hiashi picked his limp body up carefully and carried him into the compound toward the largest and most luxurious-looking house sitting on the right side of the long reflecting pool this time. Good thing this guy arrived in time to save you. The alternative would have made the entire village crap their pants with the feel of my released chakra alone, and then converge on us with pitchforks and torches. Though I'm disappointed somewhat, since that stupid brat just barely avoided being pasted across the compound wall like graffiti. For now, I'm pumping my chakra into you a little more than normal so you should recover sooner. He sure did a number on you, and it's surprising you haven't fainted from the pain yet. Kurama spoke up from inside. Sorry to make you feel my pain. We're sharing a link, right? You said you'd feel what I feel. Naruto thought guiltily as Hiashi opened the door to his house. Oh, you needn't worry. I didn't tell you I could turn any of our shared senses off at any time. I keep that particular link off most of the time since you only seem to attract trouble. The great fox replied dismissively, and Naruto was twitching his eye nonstop. Give me back the apology and the sadness I actually felt for your possible pain. Damn lucky fox, the boy huffed while his tenant snickered. Hiashi arrived in the living room and carefully set the boy in his arms down on the carpeted floor, quickly removed the blood around Naruto's mouth with a damp towel, gave him some water to clear out anything in his still recovering throat, and procured a blanket and pillow. Uzumaki-san, you may rest here for as long as you need. I do have business to take care of, so I will need to take my leave. My daughters should be home soon. Just explain your situation to them if you are awake and all should be well. Hiyashi explained with an incline of his head. He was about to leave when Naruto stopped him. Hiyashi-sama, I should tell you I already know about my tenant, so you don't have to tiptoe around it. Hiyashi blinked at this. And I'm sorry about your brother's death. I can tell you two were close from the other day. He forced himself to speak without stuttering in pain. His host allowed a sad nod after a moment's pause. We shall speak more of this when you recover. For now, just get some rest and I shall be back before too long, the clan head replied as he stepped out. Naruto decided to heed his host's suggestion and closed his eyes. 3 hours later, Naruto could still be heard gently snoring away on the floor. The relative silence of the living room was finally broken by the front door sliding open to admit two young girls wearing all black, one clearly older than the other by several years. Nei-chan, can we play games after dinner? Hanabi childishly asked as she tugged at the sleeve of her older sister's black kimono. Hinata sadly smiled and rubbed a hand on her younger sister's head. I don't think we should do that so soon yet, Hanabi-chan. This is a day of mourning for our uncle, she replied as the girls made their way further into the living room. Hanabi had an impatient scowl on her face before it turned into curious scrutiny as she noticed Naruto on the floor. Who is that? She pointed at the boy. Confused, Hinata just followed the direction her little sister was pointing in and yelped in shock as she noticed the still form of her savior. NN Naruto-kun, she cried as she immediately kneeled by the blonde and activated her Byakugan to see what was wrong. She gasped in shock as she observed what looked like minute amount of the same red chakra she saw the other night mixing in with Naruto's dense and dark blue chakra inside the body. She also noted some of his tenketsu were recently closed forcefully, but was also relieved that they were slowly opening back up. He was attacked by one of us. What happened? She worriedly thought as Hanabi kneeled down next to her. Naruto. The one who beat that bad guy. Hanabi inquired as she searched over every inch of the boy with her gaze. Hinata only nodded in response, and the little girl grinned wide. Then I'll call him Oni-chan, since he saved you. Despite the serious situation, Hinata had to smile at her little sister's antics. Hanabi was already taken with Naruto apparently. While the girls were contemplating how the blonde ended up injured and resting in their home, their father had just entered the living room, back from whatever business he was taking care of. I see you have discovered our surprise guest, my daughters. Hiyashi announced, surprising the two girls with his voice. Hanabi recovered quickly, ran up to her father, and latched on to his leg cutely. Father, why is Oni-chan here? She somewhat demanded as Hiyashi patted the top of her head. He had to hide a smirk at his youngest daughter already calling his new favorite blonde such an affectionate nickname. He wouldn't have to worry about both of his children getting along with Naruto now. He also noticed Hinata had the same expectant look on her face as her little sister, awaiting his explanation. Uzumaki-san was attacked by a stupid young boy with a misguided grudge about his father's death. He was unable to move, so I decided to have him rest here until he recovers, he finally admitted with his eyes closed in exasperation. Neji Nisan did this. Why would he blame Naruto-kun for uncle's death? Hinata's stutter disappeared mid-sentence as she showed a flash of anger in her eyes. Hiyashi did not miss this. This boy is already doing wonders for Hinata's self-confidence. Note to self. Fabricate reasons to get them together more often from now on, he thought offhandedly as he prepared his response. It was a misguided decision on my nephew's part to direct his anger about the loss at this child. Unfortunately, I do not think he will ever let this go until they meet in battle in the future and finish it. He spoke with resignation in his voice. Anyo, that's terrible for Naruto-kun. Hinata whispered as she dreaded the thought of her new friend being hurt again, especially by one of her relatives. Hanabi showed an angry yet cute expression as she devised plans to tell Neji off for this. I am going to prepare some dinner since Tomo-san has the day off. In the meantime, please leave Uzumaki-san to sleep in peace and get changed for tonight. Hiyashi requested of his daughters and they obeyed with Hinata leaving the blonde alone somewhat reluctantly. Some time later, Naruto smelled something lingering in the air before he slowly opened his eyes. It smelled like curry. On that cue, his stomach growled loudly. His eyes opened wide quickly at that sound and sat up, only feeling a little tender from his earlier beating. He glanced around to see he was still in the living room, which was now dark, and noticed Hiashi through the only lit doorway nearby. The man was kneeling at a desk in the room beyond. It was apparently a study and he looked like he was busy looking over a large collection of papers and scrolls. Looking around a little more, he heard what sounded like very cute snoring from nearby. Following the sound, he saw two girls cuddled together in the large living room chair just a few feet from him. They were wrapped in a blanket, and he saw one of them was Hinata. The smaller girl curled up in her arms must have been her younger sister, Hanabi. They seemed to have fallen asleep waiting for something, maybe for him to wake up. Uzumaki-san, now that you are awake, I would be most pleased if you replenish your energy with your portion of the dinner I made, which is being kept warm in the kitchen stove. Please take your time eating before joining me in the study when you are finished. Do not concern yourself over cleaning up afterward. Hiyashi's calm voice carried out into the living room, being quiet enough as not to wake either of the two girls. He hadn't turned his head around at all the entire time as he continued to go over the paperwork on his desk. Naruto decided to quietly do just what his host suggested. 10 minutes later, after eating some of the most delicious curry he ever tried, he quietly stepped into the study and his host finally glanced up from the paperwork. Please close the door and have a seat, Uzumaki-san. Hiyashi gently requested of his guest as he gestured with his hand toward a spot across the desk. Naruto quickly complied as he quietly slid the office door closed, before moving to kneel down opposite the clan head, who took a moment to clear his throat. I want to apologize on behalf of the entire clan for Neji-san's unprovoked attack against you. I have no excuse for his misguided anger upon you. Hiyashi regretfully said as he deeply bowed his head. Naruto frowned as he thought for a moment. Hiyashi-sama, is there really a need for an apology? He replied softly while Hiyashi raised his head in mild surprise. He continued quickly. Neji-san did say I was responsible for the events that led to your brother's death. What if that's right? Utter nonsense. If that was actually true, then if my brother had not taken my place, you would be responsible for my death instead. If you had allowed that Kumo-nin to leave without any resistance, then you would be responsible for my daughter's unthinkable fate. There is simply no way to know what could have happened with the infinite amount of scenarios this entire event could have played out. My nephew lost his mother early in his life, and now just lost his father. In his grief, he apparently decided to direct his anger at someone, and you were unfortunate enough to be the target. I shall reprimand him most severely for this and ensure he stays away from you until he calms down. Hiyashi assured his guest. Hiyashi-sama, I'd appreciate it if you just let Neji-san be, and if he still wants to take his anger out on me in the future, let it happen. Train him more for it, even. I'll take it all and beat it back tenfold into him until he finally moves on. Naruto declared with a steady voice after a moment's thought, stunning the clan head. You should understand that he is the most promising prodigy of this clan in generations. He is much stronger than my brother and I when we were his current age. He was not joking about killing you. He will do it whenever he finds a chance. He pressed. That's fine with me, sir. With the training I just started, I'm going to be the strongest shinobi ever someday. I want to protect my friends and I can't do that if I'm too weak. I think it definitely will be a good match when we eventually meet. The blonde replied with a confident smile, showing no trace of hesitation in his blue eyes. Hiyashi had to wonder if this child in front of him was way too mature for his age, or just simply excited about the prospect of a rival. Nevertheless, I will not allow any duel between you and my nephew within this compound, and I will inform him any further unprovoked attempt on you will be punished more severely. The two of you will have to find a way to get an official match outside of this compound, and that likely would not happen unless you both are enlisted in the shinobi force. I will not allow any less. Is that understood, Uzumaki Naruto? He spoke sternly as he narrowed his eyes at the blonde boy. Perfectly clear, Hiyashi-sama. Naruto accepted with an incline of his head before continuing. I hope this happens and he lets it all out. I'd hate for him to continue being angry with me for long, since Hizashi-san hoped we'd get along when we talked last night, he muttered sadly. Hiyashi raised his eyebrow at the mention of his brother. Uzumaki-san, you have met my twin brother last night. Naruto nodded and quickly relayed what transpired between him and Hizashi in the park outside the Hokage Tower. A long moment passed as Hiyashi seemed to contemplate this. I see. I am glad he seemed calm and ready. I was worried he may have had regrets since this all happened suddenly, the clan head finally said with a sigh of relief. Naruto decided to satisfy his curiosity. Hiyashi-sama, if it is okay, I wasn't told by anyone exactly what happened. I'd like to understand his actions, he asked with some apprehension. Hiyashi allowed himself a small grin as he nodded and explained everything that happened. 30 minutes later, Naruto was clenching his fists tightly in anger. Those Kumo bastards, that's not fair. They can't get away with this, even if they didn't get the Byakugan. The boy growled through gritted teeth before his expression softened with realization. I just understood he did all this to protect his king. This wasn't because he served the clan or the Hokage. I need to apologize to Hokage Gigi soon, he muttered sadly, feeling immensely guilty for yelling at his grandfather figure so harshly. Hiyashi raised an eyebrow. The shogi analogy the Nara clan likes to use. In my opinion, it is a somewhat rigid description of a shinobi's situation in many cases, but I understand where you are coming from. Most of us have our king we are willing to protect with our lives. Hizashi most certainly did it for that reason alone, and I was willing to do anything to protect my king, too, before he took my place. You should understand Hokage-sama did not order either one of us to die for the village. I immediately offered myself upon hearing Kumo's demands, and it is only because my brother's desire to protect his loved ones was slightly greater than mine that I am still here and alive in front of you. Hiyashi said thoughtfully as Naruto nodded soberly, his eyes downcast. It's still not fair. Kumo's going to get away with meaningless murder, and there's nothing we can do about it, the boy grumbled before looking up. At that moment, an ice-cold shiver went down his spine as he saw a truly malicious and devious smirk growing on the clan head's face. It was a truly terrifying thing to behold on one of the most powerful people in Konoha, and the young blonde had a feeling that someone was going to regret ever crossing this man very soon. I dare say that I have doubts that Kumogakure is going to get through this without any consequence, if all have gone as planned. Great minds think alike, and my younger brother had the exact same plan as I did when I was preparing to meet my death. I have seen a glimpse of what he was preparing with my eyes when he disabled me. I will say it was a good thing we regularly studied up on all diplomats, mannerisms and personalities, and I am confident that bumbling fool from Kumo would not check closely for anything on the body. It would be safe to assume that not getting the Byakugan will not be the only surprise for our dear friend, the Raikage. Hiyashi replied smoothly with the malicious smirk still plastered on his face. That expression was not even directed at Naruto, yet the boy was wide-eyed with terror at seeing this man's visage. He knew it would haunt his dreams for a while. A certain fox inside him shivered with excitement, her hackles rising slightly down her spine. Kumogakure in Raikage Tower. The exhausted and battered ambassador had just returned from Konoha, and in record time too. A was displaying an amused smirk as the man told him about his harrowing experience with the Hokage's rage and the Anbu as he was chased and hassled by two of them all the way to the lightning's border. A few minutes ago, the large and muscular man handed the scroll with the clan head's body off to a lab assistant for processing down in the tower's basement. He should be getting news soon. To be honest, he should have been more ecstatic about this victory for Kumo, but he could not help but feel a little uneasy about something. He tried to dismiss it as the occasional paranoia, but a good shinobi simply did not survive long without being cautious. Oi, did you actually check for any seal on the Hyuga body? He suddenly asked the ambassador out of nowhere. Yes, I did. On the forehead, right. It wasn't there when they removed his Hittite, the ambassador replied. Ace scowled. There was that paranoia rearing its ugly head, and it was here to stay.